you posting about colorism and how we need to appreciate our dark-skinned sisters, those that are on the fairer side. Why? Why those posts?
Because if you look at where we are in 2018, especially as an African diaspora, there is a racial dichotomy that has been created, and around the globe, darkest people suffer. And if you look at the standards of beauty that are promoted, are typically European or lighter standards of beauty. Eurocentric features globally. If you look at, you know, recently I was in Ghana and my friend Fuse had some billboards taken down because Nivea were promoting bleaching cream, and they put a lot of bleaching cream in Africa, but it's not just Africa, it's Thailand, India, all around the world. It happens for different reasons, but it happens, and I think it's something that we should, if we want to get closer to what being a true human is, then we need to get rid of these stupid prejudices.
Generally speaking, based on what I see on social media and what I see in real life, you know, for me, I feel like being dark-skinned, melanin, all of this kind of stuff has like become a trend. You see all these guys posting, oh, these beautiful dark-skinned women with the caption, oh, melanin on fleek, the darker the berry, the sweeter the tooth, da da da. But in reality, you're not practicing what you're preaching.
Are you saying me or?
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying what I see in general. Like, for instance, I must have like heard a guy say, oh, that girl's so dark, man, she looks like midnight, stuff like that. I hear it all the time. But on social media, you'll be seeing these people saying the complete opposite, but they sexualize dark-skinned women. So the only type of dark-skinned female they'll find attractive is one that has a ridiculous figure, you know, the small waist, the big hips. I don't know. I feel like it's just weird.
Well, in order for a state of consciousness to shift, there has to be a collective energy towards that. So what you have now is you have a lot of people praising dark-skinned women or women of a natural complexion, where before that wasn't happening, right? Because all of the media houses, the TV, the magazines, etc., a lot of them that we saw anyway were owned by Europeans, so they would promote their standards of beauty, right? So there's kind of two ways to look at it. There is a fetishization of dark-skinned people, and dark skin or people of natural complexion have been fetishized for many centuries. If you look back to, for instance, Ethiopia, they used to take the darker skinned people from the south and sell them as slaves into the Arabian Peninsula as concubines for sex, you know, people's wives, sex slavery essentially, right? But the fairer skinned ones would actually fetch a higher price, right? So there's still this, so the word Habesha, for instance, means mixed, right? That's what it means. And there's a lot of people who have kind of said, well, the most beautiful Ethiopians are Habesha.
From the north.
Exactly, right? And so if you have to be mixed to be the most beautiful, then what does that really say? Yes, there are a lot of men on social media and women who now are like, we love dark-skinned people.
Just to have that.
Well, because it's become popular, right? So people will do whatever's popular. So when, for instance, when Mike Brown got shot in Ferguson, nobody was really talking about it. And then there was a group of people on social media who kind of have alternative social media accounts who decided to make a point of talking about it and bringing police accountability into kind of the main subject topic. Because now if you look at all media houses, they all have to follow what's trending on social media, right? They can't ignore it, right? But what they would try to do is they tried to brush it under the carpet, and in fact they tried to block the Ferguson hashtag. They blocked all the Mike Brown hashtags. They created a hashtag which was Mike Brown it was his fault or something, and you're a pussy if you believe this or something, right? It was a stupid hashtag, but when you searched the accounts that were posting this hashtag, they were all bot accounts, so they were government accounts. So they were populating it with that, and it took a lot of us to keep going. Some of us got our accounts shut down to keep talking about it, keep talking about it, and out of that came Black Lives Matter. Not saying that, you know, I am pro Black Lives Matter necessarily. I'm pro Black Liberation Movement, which was an economical solution to some of our problems, not just, you know, the kind of the pacifist rhetoric of hands up, don't shoot, because I'm not for that personally, right? But it took a while, and then all the celebrities jumped on board, right? Same with this thing that's going on with this idolizing of dark-skinned people, right? You know, generally speaking, you would have a Naomi Campbell, and now you have a Lupita that everybody praises.
Do you feel like you've got all these young girls looking up to models or actresses or celebrities like them because they embrace the fact that they're dark and they don't try to, you know, bleach or, you know, try to make themselves look more Eurocentric with makeup or, you know, surgery? Do you feel like they should be looked up to because of that, or?
Well, I mean, there's different types of models. Like, some models always wear a weave, and you'll never see them without that weave, right? You won't see them with their natural hair. I think Lupita, and there was a model called Alex Weck, who was like, she walked down the runway and she pulled off her, pulled off her blonde wig to say, actually, this is me, and this is what I look like. And now you have more of a embrace, more of a celebration, I suppose, of different types of African women, different types of African hairstyles, because if you go to Central and West Africa, a lot of women have short hair and it's normal, but the women who are most celebrated in the West have weaves and long hair, right? And that isn't by accident, because, you know, they say that
it's conditioned, that's how it is. Exactly,
right? And I think that it's not as simple as we celebrate a particular model for a particular reason. I think they're celebrated for a lot of reasons. I think that if these models weren't celebrated in Western spaces, they wouldn't be celebrated the same.
Basically, you're trying to say that for you to be embraced in your own community or embraced by your own people, you need to get a cosign from Caucasians.
Well, it still seems that way. I mean, we have a saying in Jamaica, and it's you're not gonna bust a yard until you bust abroad, and it basically means until you're celebrated outside of your peer group, you're not going to be celebrated at home. But then when you're celebrated outside of your peer group, everybody all of a sudden at home now wants to celebrate you.
Do you think work the other way around? Say if you're celebrated at home first, do you think you'll be accepted by the rest of the world after?
I don't know if you'll be accepted by the rest of the world. You might be accepted by Afrocentric Africans of diaspora, but, you know, just because you're celebrated in Ghana doesn't mean you're going to be in Vogue next week, right? So I think there is still definitely this idea of, if you are celebrated in white spaces, then you should be celebrated by black people or by black faces. And there's actually a book called Black Skin, White Masks by Frantz Fanon, and the book details how people in Africa and people in the colonies and then people in the mother country or the colonizing country are looked at differently. So for instance, his example was, if you're an African in Senegal, you're seen as bush, aggressive, primitive. If you're an African in Martinique that's been taken from Senegal to work in a sugar plantation, then you're seen as a worker, you're seen as slightly more civilized. But if you're an African that was born and raised in Paris, then you're seen as, you know, well-spoken, well-dressed, and it even reflects in the way that Africans in Paris think. Growing up, if they grew up in Paris, you have quite a few Africans who will go back to Senegal and think that they're better than the people that are there. And that's not necessarily to do with, you know, them being better educated, but it's their proximity to white supremacy, or white inferiority, should we say, because they're not actually superior.
Another thing that I wanted to touch on is skin bleaching. I feel like bleaching has just become so predominant. Like, I'd hope that it would be, you know, becoming less and less a thing. But now it's like, you know, you've got illegal products being sold in cosmetic stores, and these stores are predominantly black stores where they sell, you know, natural products for African women, Caribbean women, whatever. And like, you've got a whole shelf of products which are illegal. You know, when I went into the store one time and I just went to the aisle, just had a look, and so half of them didn't even have ingredients, like, because they don't want to show what's in it. What do you think of it? Because obviously it's not allowed to be sold, but they know people are still buying it.
Are you familiar with Jay-Z and Kanye West's song N-Word in Paris?
Yeah.
You're familiar with that song? So that was about Kanye trying to start a fashion label in Paris and be accepted by Europeans, and that's why he had his tantrum on Sway in the morning. You ain't got the answer, Sway. You ain't. That's what that was about, because he was basically trying to be accepted in these spaces, and he wasn't being accepted in these spaces. But actually, the first kind of the first time that phrase was being used was when you had Africans going from Senegal and Togo and Niger up to Europe before bleaching products came into Africa, to go and buy bleaching products to then be able to lighten their skin and go back to these countries that were colonized and get the better jobs. Because, you know, there is this idea that if you have lighter skin or if you have fairer skin, then your family isn't a worker class, so you haven't had to work outdoors, so that's why your skin is fairer. And also, if you look at a lot of the managers and the managers of businesses, and a lot of businesses, they will hire fairer skinned people as policy, right? The front of house, you'll have the fairer skinned people. For instance, a restaurant, go to a lot of restaurants in Central Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and they'll put the fairer skinned people front of house, and in the back cleaning the plate, so the darker skinned people. And that kind of caste system is all over the world. If you go to India, you have the Brahmins, who are very fair, and then you have the untouchables, or what they call the untouchables, right? And it is a very big problem, especially in Jamaica, where my heritage is.
I've seen a lot of documentaries, I've seen loads of content based on why people bleach their skin there. The reporter asked this random civilian who, she was like, why do you bleach your skin? I want to be brown. This guy was darker than me, and now he's lighter than you. And then she was like, when you say brown, what do you mean? Like the Americans. Are the Americans brown? No, they've got this chromy look. Well, these guys are turning white. Yeah,
they look like dopey. They look like ghosts.
So when they say they want to be brown, I don't know, you might know because you're Jamaican, do you feel like it links into slavery? Like, is it like, you know, how there's the fair-skinned black people were allowed...
The house Negro and the field Negro. Yeah, it definitely links into that. I mean, remember, after slavery in North America, in the Caribbean, in South America, there was no therapy. So it's not like everybody got together after slavery and all of the Africans that were enslaved kind of got sitting down, laid down on the chair and asked, you know, how, you know, do you feel about this? And then they were told, you know, you are you are worthy, you are beautiful, your skin is beautiful. It just kind of carried on. It was just slightly different. And if you are in Jamaica, and now it's slightly different, but kind of 40, 50 years ago, remember Jamaica was owned by the Queen of England, right? And if you were in Jamaica and you were fairer skinned, then you were able to get better jobs. It wasn't like it was a myth, it was just the people, because what happened is the Europeans were raping Africans, and then they would have children, right, which was in Spanish they called it mulatto, which basically means the donkey and the horse come together to make it.
So what does mulatto mean today? Who are the mulattoes known as?
Basically people look like me.
Okay.
Right? But what it basically means is that, you know, you put a horse and a donkey together, because the horse is the white person, right? So the horse is the superior, and then you put a donkey, which is inferior, and you make like a mule, like me, a worker, right? Though both of my parents are African, of African heritage. My mom has some Irish in her. You would look to people like that as, you know, superior, because they are allowed in the house, they're allowed to the cool parties, they're allowed to carry money for massa, they have certain privileges, right? Because they would literally be the children of the colonizers, the rapists, the murderers, the enslavers, right? And if you have people in Jamaica saying they want to be more like the Americans, they want to be brown skin, and in Jamaica, if somebody's brown, you say, oh, brown man. You don't call them black, you say, you're brown man.
But would I be brown?
Yeah. No, you need to be black in Jamaica, you need to be black. Like, it's not like I mean, it depends, different classifications everywhere, but if they're saying that they want to be brown, they're saying that they want to have been raped by white people, because that's essentially why a lot of people. So if you look at the height of slavery in North America, right, 1750, height of slavery, there were 600,000 children born of rape, right? And then they went on to create what you have in North America now, which is that color, right? You have people who have both black parents, but they look sometimes as fair as me, and that's usually the reason. Notwithstanding that in South Africa, for instance, the Khoisan people, the San Bush people, they're fairer than me and you, and they're indigenous. So it's not necessarily that would have had to happen, but if you look at the people who were taken to North America, they were Angolan, they were from Congo, they were from Nigeria, they were from Ghana. They were typically of a very darker complexion, and then that rape allowed them, or forced them, should I say, to be lighter. But in Jamaica, one of the major problems is organ failure through skin bleaching. So whether or not people are dying, their livers are failing because of it, it's still a thing that's sought after. And then if you look at a lot of the media, and if you look at a lot of the music videos, they stick fair-skinned people or light-skinned people in the music videos, and that reinforces this standard of beauty, which is really stupid. I mean, literally, people with darker skin are superior genetically. We can say whatever we want to say about dominant and recessive, because European genes are recessive and African genes are dominant, and some people would say that European genes are inferior and African genes are superior. Because if you have more melanin, it means that you're able to be more intuitive. It means
no sun cream.
Exactly. Well, it means that you're literally made of light, because you can absorb more light, right? So that means that you are able to store energy better. It means you're able to sing better. It means you're able to dance better. A lot of people don't even know what melanin is.